Hey everyone, Internet PCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about The Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. Before we get into the book, I want to talk about The Handmaiden. It's a movie by Park Chan-wook who is known mostly from his movie Old Boy. The movie is about a conman in Korea during the Japanese invasion that is planning to trick a Japanese widow into giving her inheritance. The conman sends an orphan girl into the house to pretend to be a handmaiden, and during this time both women become closer while the multi-level con is still ongoing. The movie is considered one of the best movies from Korea along with Old Boy. And as another side note that is interesting at least for me, The Handmaiden is an adaptation of Fingersmith by Sarah Waters, and the Fingersmith itself, which is a term for pickpockets, is a remake of The Woman in White by Vicky Collins about a woman who was trapped in a lunatic asylums during the 18th century, back when asylums can be used by people to get rid of women they want to get rid of, either a wife they grew tired of, or sister and cousin that gets in the way of family inheritance. Fingersmith is stuck between this amazing book and a really great movie adaptation, so expectation for it is already really high for me. And spoiler, it met all those expectations. The main character of the first act in the book, Susan Trinder or Sue, is an orphan that was raised in an orphanage that raised a band of thieves, or what the book called fingersmiths. The children there are raised by a woman named Miss Saxby who is very strict with the kids she raised, often striking them when they misbehave or didn't steal enough for them. But she's the only mother figure she has. Meanwhile, the closest person to a father figure for Sue is Mr. Ibbs, the locksmith. The thieves usually sell their stolen item to him, and he often conned them to thinking that the items they got was much cheaper than it is. Often he only gave them a tenth of the selling price. But both Mrs. Saxby and Mr. Ibbs strangely dotes on Sue. She never strikes Sue and often treats her like her own daughter, and Mr. Ibbs also dotes on her. He even often tells us about how much the stolen items are actually worth. Already the book is amazing, it sets the tone and the characters so well. Despite written in 2002, the book feels like it's written during the setting of the story, which is Victorian era. It's the kind of writing that takes you on a journey to a different time and place. And since it is during this Victorian era, where poverty and public hanging goes hand in hand, we also learned that that is how Sue's real mother died, by hanging, a common execution method of that era for a thief. Usually kids comes and goes as orphanage does, but Sue fully grew up in the den of thieves without anyone ever picking her off the orphanage like the other kids. The only one left with her are two others, John, a short and unsightly man that grew bitter and angry to the world, and Dainty, a kind woman that grew attached to John for reasons unknown. One day they were hanging out with Mrs. Saxby at the fireplace when someone knocked on their door. It was a guy named Richard Rivers who is known in the family as the gentleman. He's born from a wealthy family but fallen into gambling habit and was kicked off the family. He turned into a life of thief and conman, usually selling forgery to other people. He tried to get married to rich women to get their inheritance but have failed so far, but this time he had another proposal, not to Mrs. Saxby or Mr. East but to Sue. The gentleman has been going after another orphan's inheritance. The girl lived her life, closed off all her life in a remote city, but she comes from a rich family and her uncle is about to give her his wealth with the condition that she got married. The gentleman has been going after that inheritance once again. He's planning to marry her and then put her into a lunatic asylum that is still a hit during the Victorian era, because with her there that money is still not his. It's still not money he can waste away on gambling. And so far he managed to get closer to her by dressing as an art teacher and teach her how to paint, pretending he still belongs in the old money community. But she has always accompanied by a maid during their painting session, and now the maid got sick, so the class stopped since there's no maid to watch over them. Sue's role in all of this is to become her maid and then leave the gentleman and the girl alone so he can continue to woo her and get her inheritance. She got a quick training on how to become a maid, and for the first time ever, Sue finally left her house. A den of thieves, but home despite it all. Since she was considered a big city girl from London, the resident of Briar doesn't give her a warm welcome, and none of the other servants at the Mount residence gave her a warm welcome either. But she eventually did grow a little bit closer to them, and more importantly to the target of her con, Mount Lily. They become closer than anyone has ever gotten to Sue her entire life. For 2 weeks, it felt like she's living in a slow-paced dream. But of course, the gentleman arrived to make her remember she's living in a nightmare, not whatever this dream is. Initially, it's easy to see John as the villain because he's a wannabe tough guy who only acts tough to people weaker than him. But the gentleman is worse. He sees others only as people he can use for him to get the most benefit, and like a child, he will sulk if things did not go his way or if it's inconvenience him. Everything about him is fake, including his nickname, the gentleman, which is just a facade he put to hide the ugliness inside of him. As charming and charismatic as he can be, a snake is a snake still. The book told all this, including a few more characters, in such a short time, and what's more amazing is that most of it wasn't told through exposition dump, but by showing us the interaction and reaction from the characters. But despite all his effort, the gentleman's charm doesn't really work. Not on Sue since she already sees his true color as a conman, and not on Lily since he comes off as a creep instead of a gentleman and it scares her instead of making her love him. But Richard is too far high up his own ass to see that his so-called charm is not working. He thinks he's God's gift on earth and no lady can say no to him as long as he turns on his charm. So we have a proper mess from all parties involved here. Sue grew fond of Lily because she's a good girl at heart, unlike the people she grew up with. She cannot stand looking at Lily growing more ill as Richard's trying to push his way into her life, but she also cannot let the count fail since her mother depends on her to bring the money that the count will bring. And to make matter worse, Maud Lily, who is the victim in all of this, is trapped in her own way. Her uncle won't give her her inheritance unless she got married to a person that he will accept as decent enough, and he most likely will not accept anyone. He's planning to keep her until he's dead to read book to him every day, then leave her without any of his wealth that's been used to keep her from getting out of his house. So not only her livelihood but also her freedom, her getting outside her house, is tied to finding a man that can remove the chain that her uncle has put her in. She needs this marriage so she can properly live her life. She needs the gentleman, the only one who offered her a solution to getting married despite her dislike of him. Both of them obviously does not like Richard, and both of them does not want him near their life, but both of their success depend on part of his plan going well. If the story was left as it is already a really well written drama, albeit not that much of a standout compared to The Woman in White that inspired it, but the author took another step further. What we've known so far is only the prologue of the story through Sue's perspective. Sue helped Lily runs away from home to get married to Richard, planning to finally be done with the count of putting her into the asylum. But when the doctor arrived, it was she that was taken by the doctors to the asylum. This whole time, the trap was meant for her, not Lily. Just like Sue, Lily is someone who was raised at an orphanage. Instead of a den of thieves, she was raised by nurses in an asylum, den of crazies. It was there that she learned how to read, and when she's old enough, her uncle came and forced her to become a lady in his house. She was raised roughly without any love, not from his uncle and not from his servants. She was beaten when she cannot do something, she was beaten when she won't do something, and she was beaten much worse when she fought back. This meek lady we meet at the start of the book is a changed person who have gone through years and decades of abuse. And the book she's been reading every day for her uncle is not literature work, it's his collection of smooth. It's basically Victorian era pornography, and she's been reading it not just for him but his friends since he was a child. Not for anything sexual, or at least not fully. It's mainly some sort of art form that rich people invented because they wanted to feel special. The second act also might be the weakest part of the story, but only because there's a part that is repeated just to tell the side of the story from Lily's side when Sue was there. But her backstory is not meant to excuse what she did, it's there to flesh her out further as a character and make us know who she is as a character. After all, she did do some very disgusting stuff during the entirety of the story. She has lived most of her life in this hellhole, holding her breath when the devil comes and strike a deal with her. Richards come to her with a deal, her inheritance, her money, in exchange for her freedom. To do that, he'll bring another woman, Sue, and together they'll make a con to trick people that she was Lily so the doctors will take her instead. Lily agreed to the deal, and to get rid of her current maid Agnes, that she often tortured out of spite, she even let the gentleman come into her room and do horrible things to her while she pretends not to hear Agnes scream. Both Sue and Lily actually learn to care about each other during their short stay together without Richard, but unfortunately not enough to give up the promise of a better life, even when his promises are false. There's a lot of twists and turns to the story, but everything is set up perfectly. It's not like the story overly rely on the plot twist to make it good, it's just the plot twists are a part of what makes the story so good. And the story doesn't end there. There is still more reveal of Sue's and Lily's past and how long the con has been set up, and how long they've lived their life based on the lie the adults have told them their entire life. Lily is now trapped in the den of thieves, and Sue is trapped in the den of crazies. Their life has been flipped upside down, and it is up to both of them to set things right. It's a great story. The movie adaptation is cleaner but with a few more wish fulfillment compared to the book. The book is messier and of course longer to read than the movie, but there's less wish fulfillment compared to the movie. They both have a different kind of charm to them. I'd say if you have the time, go for both. But going back to the book, I wish there was some kind of redemption arc for them in the story, especially to Agnes, because I don't think they can have a happy ending before that. But other than that, at least here in this fiction, there's a happily ever after for both Sue and Lily. I give this a 4.5. What do you think? Let me know if I missed anything, so leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it.